Welcome to Illuminating Leadership, where we spotlight amazing leaders from all walks of life and industry who share their experiences and their best tips with you, our listeners. I'm your host, Beth Johnson, and I'm here today with my guest, Nikki Strand. Welcome, Nikki.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm so thrilled to have you. Before we kick off, I want to tell everybody a little bit about you, if that's okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. So Nikki is a real estate agent for eXp Realty, and you serve the Bismarck-Mandan area of North Dakota. Is that correct?
Yes, and surrounding areas, but that is where I'm located, is Bismarck-Mandan.
Fantastic. Now, like most of us, Nikki took a bit of an indirect route to her dream career. She moved from, and I hope I pronounced this right, radiologic technology.
Yeah, way to go. Nailed it.
I'll admit I practiced a little.
Good job.
She moved from that to sales for a home builder, but it wasn't until she met her husband, Tyler, and helped him remodel, stage, and then sell his first house.
Yes.
It was then that she realized that her passion lay in the real estate industry. And she took off in 2015, hasn't looked back, and has since helped over 100 families to buy or sell in this area.
Yeah.
Nikki's also a mom to two young kids, Brecken and Kaya, so the word home has a whole new meaning for her today. And I'm thrilled to have Nikki personally as my guest because she helped, and by helped, I mean patiently endured me and my husband as we bought our current home. So thank you for that, Nikki.
Yeah, that was a ride for sure.
It was. So, okay, to kick us off, can you tell me more about that first remodel and sale with Tyler? What clicked for you during that experience?
So he had just a teeny tiny house with a really big garage, as you know, he was a bachelor at the time. And there was just, when you walked in, it felt like a bachelor pad. And so it wasn't as inviting and everything. And he just kind of gave me the green light to decorate it. We changed up the gross carpet that was in there and everything like that. And it really just was fun. And it was fun to see the change and put your own stamp on a place and then enjoy going in it every single day. So then you know, it feels like home. So that's where you want to spend your time versus like quick in and out. Like, oh, I just don't feel comfortable here.
I don't want to be here.
Exactly. So that's what really clicked about it. And then, yeah, I was in radiologic technology at the time, and just kind of at a point where I didn't see being in it forever. I just was kind of starting to see the downward of it. And this just happened to be at the exact same time. So I started looking in the industry, and then, yeah, just kind of grew from there.
It's so interesting how those things happen in our lives, right?
For
We
sure.
start down one path and then something happens that says, it's not quite where I'm meant to be.
Yeah. Well, also, thankfully, you know, Pinterest was really becoming big at the time too. So that really sparked some things too, I think. But
how so? Tell me how so.
So when you go online and you just see Joanna Gaines and those type of things, and then you really, you know, figure your style out even, and then to have a window where, okay, Tyler has a house that needs some help too, and then you can kind of put everything together, the kitchen, the living room, the bedroom, and everything just kind of comes together. And so, yeah, Pinterest was a huge help.
Pinterest is amazing for so many ideas. I know.
Mm-hmm.
And how cool that Tyler not only was open to this, but said, hey, you know, have at it, make it your own. And then you got to experiment in a very safe place, right?
Definitely.
That's really, so, you know, marry him. That's a very good idea.
Yeah. That was our first real jump. And then we got a dog, and there you go.
And then it just goes from there, right? And you've got two beautiful children today. Is that what, so you went from there then to working for a home builder, is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
And what did you learn while you were there?
I learned everything from the ground up. So basically you learn how to put a house together and what the stages are of building a house, and that was a huge, even just the home buying process, but you're just sprinkled into that with the new construction. So it's more about designing it, picking a floor plan, talking to these families about the why. Like, why would I want this? Why do I want a fireplace? Why do I want my bedroom away from the kids' bedrooms? Those type of things, which has really helped me today. But my it was just a lot of steps. So, you have to pick your countertops. There's a time frame that you got to do that, your cabinets, match them all together, and then watch it as it goes. So that's more of like a 6 to a 9 month project versus now, which is typical escrow period is 2 months. So yeah, it was a very fun job change. And there was a lot of learning to do, you know.
Well, and you bring up something that I hope that our younger listeners clue in on or key in on when they hear this, is that, well, let me ask you, how important do you feel it was that you learn all of this in this industry step by step? Was it beneficial? Did it move too slow for you? What was the outcome of you being able to work for that home builder and then parlay that into your own real estate business?
I think that it was super helpful, because it's like from the ground up. So you learn that the only thing that you cannot change in real estate is the location. You can change everything else. And so just right there, it is a dream. So you get to tell me what you want, and we're going to find it the perfect fit for you. And then if people don't like a certain size of a bedroom, we can change that. If they don't like where something's located, we can change that. You just cannot change once the lot is picked. And that's true today too. So in just residential real estate, that is something that I tell people all the time. If they don't like the style of things that they see, it can be changed. Don't just turn away from a home just because it has oak cabinets or white cabinets in the opposite realm. If you love the location and this is where you want to be, let's get creative. Such as, you know this very well.
Yes.
You know this extremely well. That's exactly what you saw, the vision completely, and you were stuck on it. So we were going to make it happen.
And for our listeners, I will say, as Nikki was talking, I was thinking that same thing, because we bought into a home built in 1920 in a little small town that we needed to be in or wanted to be in for no commute, basically. And this sweet woman, every time I came in the home after seeing, the handful that we looked at, I knew this was the one I wanted, but I was very unsure of how on earth do we make my dream come true? How do I bring my vision into fruition? And I am not good like you are, Nikki, at the environmental things, right? The staging and I couldn't see the vision. Nikki was brilliant at helping me see the vision. And once I said, go for it, she'd go from room to room and say, you could keep this and you could replace this. And it just made my buying process a lot easier, and it eased my mind a lot. Right.
Love that.
So you're brilliant at that.
Thank you. It's fun. I will say that there is a process with that too. And that's been, so when I first meet a couple, they don't need my opinion right away. I'm there for a purpose. And then once you get to know somebody and they start to tell you about their life and their family and what they need, then it starts to, well, let me just tell you that this room could be a master suite. Let's think outside the box a little bit. And then, their minds just open up. And that's super fun to do. But I don't need to say that right away, because then some people are just like overwhelmed by it.
Hey, lady, I didn't ask. I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do here, right? But
Yes.
what's so interesting in that and a couple other things you said, and I want to kind of pull that all together. You run your business, right? You're a real estate agent. You run your own business, which makes you a leader. And you're a leader then in a lot of ways, right? A leader of the business and your home and your community. And what you just described, could that not apply to any workplace?
Definitely.
And so I'm speaking to current, future leaders to say, if you're struggling communicating with a person, what I heard you just say, Nikki, is I don't come in, excuse my phrasing, all balls out, right? I
Yes.
come in professionally and say, I'm here for you. I'm here to support you. Please think about what it is you want, what your needs are, and we'll go from there. And in a leadership role, it's getting to know the person before you subject them to all of your dictates, right?
Definitely. Definitely. I think about that actually often just with past jobs even. Because the leadership in my role now is very different than any other job I've obviously had. Because normally a leader tends to be the one who is managing or pays you. You know, that's your leader.
Right.
And in my way, it's actually the opposite. So I'm leading my sellers, my buyers, and all of that, but they're paying me. So it's kind of a different scenario. And so it can be a little bit tricky since I'm technically the employee when somebody hires me, you know, so it's just knowing my worth too, and knowing that I'm there to help. And my end goal is for them to be happy and move on and close the chapter or open the chapter, you know.
So many little gems. All right. So I want to address that one, and then I'm going to go back to something else you said too. How important is knowing your worth?
It's everything. And I have that written on here too, is that's a lesson I wish I would have learned back when I was in high school even, you know, like experiencing the whole Tyler remodel, that whole thing, maybe a little bit earlier would have saved me some college money too.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure that degree was not cheap.
Yes, exactly.
So let's explore that a little bit. How did that experience with Tyler's home increase your sense of worth and your sense of value and your sense of understanding yourself?
I don't know if I've actually really ever thought about that. It just felt like wow, I'm really good at this. And like, you know, wow, I can actually place that together, and I can see the vision. As you know, I can see, it's almost like I can just see it before it happens as far as decorating and remodeling and those type of things. And so I just kind of opened up my creative senses in that way. And so that was really fun. That was really fun.
Well, that makes sense. You went to school for something that's very orderly and has a process and is black and white, right? And all of a sudden you're sitting here going, I am good at the creative side.
Definitely.
And tell people how that felt. For those who haven't yet, you know, a lot of people struggle with what's my value, what's my self-worth, what am I good at? How did for you that feel when you discovered that about yourself?
Well, it felt like just correct. I don't even know what the feeling would be, but it just felt right. And it felt like that's all I could think about then, you know. It's like it just opened up this big can of worms. And when I say like I wish I would have gotten to know myself a little bit, I've always loved the creative side. I just thought I was like to be creative, and then like, you know, that was a little hobby, but I never really opened the door to going down a career path of that sort. So when that happened, it just felt fun. It just felt fun and continuous, kind of, you know, like I always wanted to add another picture or get a plant and then, you know, do a backsplash and those things. So it was just kind of a fun thing to do.
Well, and I love the fact that you've used the word fun, because were you, I don't want to say raised by, let's say influenced by people as you were growing up to understand that careers had to be serious and you have to make money and you have to go find something that will sustain you for the rest of your life? And creative, I've had a couple of creatives in my life, related to and not, that have said, yeah, I was just led to believe I couldn't go anywhere with that.
Basically. Yeah, my family, my dad was a loan officer at a bank for
Mm.
agriculture, and then my mom was a nurse who worked her butt off and just, climbed every ladder that there was to climb. And more than just, you have to make money and provide a certain lifestyle that you want. I just always knew that I liked to help people, and I knew that my mom really helped people in the medical field.
Of
And
course.
so it was one of those things that I think I was confused on what that even meant. So it was like, I wanted to help people, so obviously I'm going to go into the medical field. And that wasn't, there are a million ways to help people. And I really realized that my passion, yes, I love to help people, but more than anything, I like to make people's lives easier. And that's really what my passion is just making people's lives easier in whatever way. So, the medical world, correct, you can definitely make people's lives easier. But the real estate world, it's like, if you don't do this every day, you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so I am here to just be people's guides, their friend along the way, their confidant, sometimes their therapist, you know?
True.
Yes.
Yes.
And then just overall, I mean, a person you can rely on and just call and be like, hey, I need a good electrician. Do you know of anybody? Yes, here are my contacts. And if I don't know, they will know, those type of things. And that's really what I love about this career. It's just never ending. You can talk about a million different things.
Well, I will try very hard not to keep bringing up our own experience, but I have to in what you
Yes,
just
yes.
said, which is you eased our minds over and over and over again. And it's true what Nikki says. She was something of a therapist, and you were also a really valuable resource. Like I never felt like I was getting in your way, wasting your time, a problem customer every time
Right.
I called and said, oh my gosh, what do I do about this? Or where can I go for this resource? You were always there, always ready to help and really kind about it. And so this was a huge undertaking for us because we remodeled most of the entire home
Yeah.
on a somewhat limited budget. And it became that much more amazing because you were part of it. And again, I
Thank
can't
you.
thank you enough for that. Now
Well, and
you
not just any home. That was, I mean, a duplex was turned into a single family with the 1920 and walls taken down. I mean, so it was quite the project, but it was really fun, and I've seen it since, and it is beautiful. It's
well,
great. Yeah.
thank you.
Hmm.
What do you say to the up and coming, the what I call the now generation who are just as impatient as we were at their age? I want it now and I want to figure out everything and I want to be great at what I do. And why can't I figure out who I am? What would you say to them?
I guess speaking to my old me, even, I'm just
Hmm.
thinking like dig into the things you really love, and like if you really enjoy one class over the other class, like you're really into, for me, I loved sociology, and I didn't as much like some of the other classes. And it's like, okay, you really enjoyed that. Figure out why you enjoyed that and kind of go down that path versus just, I said I'm going to be a rad tech and I'm sticking to it. I'm going to be in the medical, like actually finding yourself when you have interests in something. And because you can make anything out of nothing,
Yeah.
and so my thought was, I love art, I love those things. You can't make a career out of those things, which is not true. You just have to find your niche and find a way to have a creative outlet in whatever you choose, which, now I'm rambling, but
No, you're not at all. In fact, I'll add to that to say often, if not almost every time, in order to do that, you have to tunnel vision. You have to leave everybody else's opinions and their viewpoints and their experiences behind.
yeah,
Because, we all were raised in whatever environment we were raised in. And because of that environment, we learn certain things. Like you said, I will be able to help people through medical because my mom
yeah,
was a nurse and a great
right.
nurse, right? but you eventually found that wasn't for you. And so for our listeners, especially this new generation, I would say exactly what Nikki said. Pay attention to those, your instinct and your intuition. And I love that you tied it into their classes, or if
Yeah.
there's something about your job role that you really like I hate talking with the customers, but I love putting reports together, or vice versa.
Yes,
That can tell you a lot about yourself, right?
definitely. Yeah, I
Very
agree.
cool.
Like having a list of, I love, I hate those things, which
Mm-hmm.
actually I think would be really beneficial for leaders or managers to do as well sometimes, because there's been a lot of times that I just see, um, even I just think back to old coworkers and like they were really great at this. I just don't know why they weren't using them in that, they'd probably still be there if they.
Tell me a little bit more about that. I mean, without, exposing anyone, do you have a story that you can think of or an experience?
Yeah. So it was shortly. So when I left the new construction world, I had another job that I was just to kind of buy time to get my real estate license. And when I was doing that, it was very close knit friends type of situation. And it just felt like you had to believe in their passion versus them asking you, like, what do you love outside of here? What do you not like? Do you like talking to people every day? Or would you rather be in the back office doing kind of our billing stuff, and figuring out everybody's niche and where they would just flourish versus I felt like it was kind of the demise of everybody instead, because everybody was just
Yes.
like, ugh. And then nobody seemed to ask, how are you doing? Do you like this? So then it was just like this kind of stacking on top of each other till
Mhm.
someone just quits and then you have to change over anyways. So I can think of not just that situation, other ones as well, but that's, I feel like, a memorable.
And it unfortunately seems to be the norm, not the
Mhm.
exception. And so if you were talking to, a room full of corporate leaders today, what would you say to them about why that is so important?
Because everybody deep down just wants to feel accepted and needed, and it's no exception in the workplace. Yes, you're hired to do a job, but when somebody truly feels valued and like they're being listened to, um, that it's just amazing what they'll do for you,
Mhm.
you know, and they'll remember it because they always say, someone might not remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And I think of that every time I'm with a client, like always be respectful, always those. I won't jump in and tell my opinion unless I'm asked the
Mhm.
first couple times and then, and then I might not jump in, but it's the same sort of thing where I like more of a, I don't even know I don't even know the word I'm looking at for as far as style, but some other people might like the minimalist style
Mhm.
or the, very country western. Like my parents love country western style, and that's not really my style, so I have to bite my tongue.
Yes.
Um and
That
so it's
has to
one of
be
those things.
difficult.
Yeah, sometimes I wrote that on there that that's probably my least favorite part of the job is giving an insult politely.
And that's about it, because you want them to love the place once they're in it.
Yes.
And so how do you separate that? You're standing there talking to them and they've got a vision and you've got a vision. How would you translate all of that to leaders today? What do you think the benefit for them would be in really getting to know the person like you really get to know your clients? It's not, like you said, it's not a trick, it's leadership. That is
Yeah.
leadership. You're leading a process and you're leading people to something that will benefit them and you the
Yeah.
most, right?
I feel like when you tap into the emotion of a person and you get into like the root of who they are, like you were talking about, the tasks start to become easier,
Mhm.
and just in the fact of like oh, I understand that this person might be having a hard time in their life right now because their child is sick, or, their husband, they're going through a divorce or something. So maybe that's why they're late on this project. And just kind of tapping into that human emotion where it's like, I'll give them a break and we can talk to them just like, hey, is there anything that you need to get this done? Because I know that you're having a hard time at home. And that feels a lot different than like, nope, Tuesday it's due, it's Wednesday,
Right.
like you suck. Because people lose their motivation now, especially I feel like a lot quicker than it used to be, is because of COVID. I mean, if I just had a colleague of mine actually get kind of a rough review from a boss that isn't even around her a lot.
Mm.
She's in a different part of the company and so doesn't see her every day to day. And she sent her a really rough review. And she just felt like, I'm so unmotivated now. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
even feel like doing anything. So if I can say anything, it's just like, hey, I noticed you're late, like soften it. Just remember that, like, we don't always know what people are going through, and motivate them in the way that maybe they respond to, like love
Right.
languages.
Well, exactly. And leadership is influence. And for any leader that's listening that sits out there and goes, bullshit, I am not going to soften it. I'm not going to cater to
Yes.
this whiny person, because I've heard that lately.
Yeah.
And it is, I won't go into my emotions that I, I feel over, but you're missing out on amazing opportunities to influence, to grow, and then to affect your bottom line. I mean, it
Yeah.
all ties into bottom line. What do you say to the leaders today that are still in that mode of leadership that I was brought up in corporate, which is put your nose to the grindstone, shut up, quit whining, work 10 to 20 to 30 extra hours a week, give everything you've got, and hope that you're going to get the raise and your pension will still be there, and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
I've got this group of leaders that are saying, well, I don't understand these young kids. They're lazy and they don't want to work and it's ridiculous, but they give them none of their time.
Right.
What do you say to them?
So um that style of leadership is pretty foreign to me, I guess, because maybe I am a little bit more of a softie, but my dad is more of that style.
You've used the word soft,
Hmm.
and I grew up in that environment, in that corporate environment where I was called
Oh
soft
yeah.
or weak. And that tended to happen with women.
Yeah.
They
Right.
never said it to the men who knew how to motivate and influence and who used those psychology techniques and all of that. But man, the minute a woman deploys those same techniques,
It's true.
and that today just infuriates me still.
Yeah.
Um, but how do you feel about that?
Um, yeah, I agree with what you're saying completely. I think that women do get labeled that a little bit easier. Because I just feel like even as a mom too, I tend to just want to kind of fix things. And
Yes. Yep.
um I'm also a helper. Like
Hmm.
I take on everybody's stuff and I will be a really good ear to listen and help you think it through and all of that. So I think that's more of the approach that I probably take in business as well, is when I see a husband and wife and they're having this conversation in a house and there's obviously one decision maker, so then you want to see both sides. So you want to be like, how do you feel about that to the wife after they have this
Hmm.
conversation? And then be like, well, if I can help bring this together in whatever way, I'm going to do that softly, because I don't want to just go straight to the husband and be like, yep, you're right. Like, you would never hire me,
Right. Well,
as
you
a,
understand human relations, because the
yeah,
minute you do that and you anger one party in that couple, you're
it's
not, you're
done.
going to lose the client.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it's disrespectful because we don't know what's going on in other people's heads. And like in your situation, just like any leadership, you're getting snippets of what they choose to tell you in the moment.
For
And
sure.
that relationship is only developed with time and with care and with communication so that
Yeah.
you can understand their needs. Same thing in the workplace, right? You mentioned you're a fixer, and I will step in here quick to say, if I could redo anything myself, it would not be getting angry about being called, labeled certain things,
Yeah.
because what I did to fix that was I gave more and more and more.
Because you're like,
And
I'll show them kind of thing.
right, I'll show them. And that coming especially from female will keep you, I don't think they look at you, the decision makers look at you with as much respect then, because they then label you as the doer.
Oh yeah.
Not the leader, right?
Right.
If I just tap her a little bit or kind of, nudge her in an angry kind of way and get her ire up, then she'll go do everything for me that we need done. And so there is that fine line. But anyway,
And
enough of
so to kind of lean into that as well, I just thought of something that I also wish I would have known when I was younger, and that's to actually identify the emotions that I'm feeling when certain things come up, because then that has changed my communication style so much, and I'm more direct, because you still, even though I'm going to use even the air quotes, but even though I'm soft, I still want people to know exactly what I'm saying when I
right.
say it, and not be confused or have any gray. So I feel like I've had to really tap into, ooh, that made me feel anxious, or that made me feel not just mad, sad, happy, glad, those, those easy ones. Because then you can go to them, and rarely when you go to people and be like, hey, I'm a little confused on what you said, I just want to revisit this. Rarely are they like, ugh, annoyed with that. And it feels like the communication then gets settled. And that's what I've had to have conversations with husbands and wives that are giving me two different things. So, and I feel like that would, even though technically I'm not a corporate leader or anything like that, that would be another thing, is direct communication. And really it all stems down to emotions as well. So
it does. You have to dig down, you have to be honest with yourself, and then you have to be willing to say it to yourself and then possibly say it to someone else. So in the example you gave, you figure out, okay, I'm anxious. Why am I anxious? Well, I'm anxious because I'm confused. And when I'm confused, I don't have the answer to give my client. And when I don't have the answer to give my client, I might look stupid. And if I might look stupid, they might not want to work with me, right?
Yeah.
So it's so much more than just your anxiety in the moment.
Totally.
You have learned that beautiful trait of being vulnerable so that you can communicate in a way that is human to human.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, you've dropped so many gems in this podcast. You said earlier that people just want to be in the know. And if they know you're feeling confused versus you hiding emotion and expressing something them non-verbally or in the wrong language, and they're left to wonder, what is wrong with my real estate agent, right?
Yeah.
If they know you're confused and you've communicated directly, it's a win-win for both parties.
Yeah. Because I feel like what's happened is it comes and then you don't want to say it, so then you're dancing around it and you're just like, yeah, this awkward real estate agent. And also what I've realized is when I identify I feel anxious or I feel whatever, it kind of goes away too.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So it's like, you feel this, but you feel like, oh, that made me mad, or it didn't really make you mad. It made you something else. So identify it, get rid of it. Then you can go in and be like, hey, I just want to revisit this because, whatever.
Because then it's not bouncing around in your headspace and you're worried about, how do I hide it? How do I, communicate through this? You can just get right to the facts.
You feel clear and straight to it. Emotions are not something that every person really wants to dive deep into. So
empathy and vulnerability and direct communication, all these things that you've kind of honed.
Well, I will say I've always been kind of everybody's therapist, including, best friends of mine, my own family members, but I have not always been very good at the emotion thing at all in direct communication. are your thoughts that you're having, are
Your
they
thoughts become your behavior, become your
yeah.
action.
Yeah. So once I found out that there's not just the regular emotions, and I don't remember exactly how I felt now, but I feel heartbroken or I feel devastated or whatever. Once I said that, it was like poof. It was just like a weight, like, oh, that was it. That was exactly how I felt. Now I have to change that. And like actually when I feel something come up, identify it, clear-headed, go talk to them.
And what I hear in that, which is just the opposite of how you think you might feel, is you actually gain control when you give up control,
For
right?
sure. Yep.
So when you're sitting there judging someone else and you're feeling upset and ridiculous and why won't they hear me? There's all this
yes.
angst in the system and you feel like, oh, I have no control of this. What's going on? Versus, as you said, I dove deep inside. I was my own therapist. I explored my own feelings, identified it, poof, it went away. And with that clarity, now you have a choice. Either you can change how you're saying things or choose not to, because that's your decision. But in that exercise, you just got control back.
Definitely. Yeah. And it feels like now I feel like I don't even recognize my own reactions back when in time, because it's like I can be clear-headed. Not all the time though, but
no, geez, if we could all the time, I mean, wouldn't that be amazing? We'd be world leaders.
Exactly.
Or not.
They're not, exactly.
No, we'd be clear and go, yeah, no way, I'm not taking that on.
Yeah. But it also takes, like, I get really calm now in hard situations. So I used to get, Beth, with your situation again, what should have been a quick closing was it a year?
Yes.
It was like a year.
Yeah.
And so, that would have probably stressed me out. I'd be thinking about it all the time. And now I just know that we get through it onto the net. I'm not going to rile anybody up. I'm going to keep things together and see all sides so that it's not just doomsday all the time, because real estate is very emotional and there's a lot that comes up. So it's like, we'll get through this,
And in doing that, what happened, speaking to my side of the relationship, was I met with repeatedly someone who was kind and calm and patient and respectful, so that, entrepreneurs, as you're listening, what that did is I am ready to share your name and information from the rooftops. In one of your last stories, you said something that made me think this question. Have you had a scenario in your job or a customer that you just couldn't overcome?
Yeah.
How'd you handle it?
So I'll give you a backstory. I got referred to them from somebody that was really close to me and met with them. They had young kids, he had a wife at home and everything. And they made it sound like they were desperate to sell their house. I was the third realtor who had tried, and they were desperate to go. They weren't married. They were going to wait to get married, all of this sort of thing. And me being somebody who has empathy and all that, I'm like, I got you. Let's do this. And I ended up bringing in a buyer as well. And because of this, I lowered my commission, which this was, at the very beginning and everything, where it's like, okay, I have both. Well, it was then trying to convince them the rest of the time that I had their back still while representing the buyer. It would be something like the buyer would want to come look at the garage, and they would take that as I was sneakily trying to get them in to make changes and things like that. And so I had to have a sit down with them and just, this is my goal. You guys told me that your end goal was this. How do you want to proceed? Because I feel like I can't do my job if you don't trust me, like you said,
Right.
And they both had nothing to say at our sit down meeting, but then would constantly hang up on me, call me names, things like that.
Oh my gosh.
And the buyer was lovely, like lovely, lovely. Did not ask for anything that another buyer wouldn't ask for. You know, we just get through it. They ask for something, you say yes, you say no, you say maybe, we move on, we sign, and then it's done. Well, when this was done, it was the only time that I have been like, sayonara, delete your phone number.
Yep.
I can't do it. So it was, I feel like I'm very persistent. I don't know what the word would be that I'm looking for, but where I'll get you there, but
Right.
I'm not afraid to just say goodbye then too, you know? Like,
Well, and that's another great example of leadership, because as you know, we both talked today about empathy and vulnerability and getting to know the human behind the employee or behind your customer. I swear by that 100%, but that also doesn't mean coddling someone who
right.
is consistently treating you or others badly, is not engaged in the process, is not engaged in their own growth. And that is part of leadership, is once you've done all the things we talked about and you get to the point where, yeah, we're not getting anywhere. I don't want this employee on staff, or I don't want this customer in my diary anymore.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Do the work it takes to walk them quietly out the door. Right.
Exactly. Yes. Yep.
So,
And I did have to learn the hard way too, you know, like sometimes when you think you're doing somebody a favor by offering them less, you know, like that was my hardest client and I offered less. So it doesn't really make sense. And so it was a learning lesson that I now stick by, that I'm worth what I'm providing, you know. And I have two kids at home, I have a husband, I have lots of family, so it's like I just don't have the time for conflict either.
right.
So I have a job to do. I love meeting people, making their lives easier, but I just am not going to sell my soul for it, you know,
Correct.
or miss any of my kids' events, those type of things, you know. I'm not going to not be the mom I want to be because I want to be a good person to somebody who might not respect me as much.
I love that. I love it. And that does lead me to one of my, we're on an hour. I've kept you a while, so we'll start wrapping up. But one of the questions that I had, and my entrepreneurs will hear one thing and my brick and mortar leaders will hear another.
Yeah.
So what do you do? What's your biggest tip for that work-life balance? I mean, I think you just gave one, which is don't sell your soul for the job.
Yeah.
Because we work for our families. Is there anything else that you would add?
I would say remember to put yourself first sometimes as well. That's also a lesson that I've had to learn the hard way, you know, that a lot of times if somebody would be, this is the example I have to use because this is all I got, but if someone's like, hey, I need to see this house on Saturday at 1:00, that's probably not their only time that they can see it, you know? So if you have your kids' basketball game at 1:00 on Saturday, just try and give other options as well. So it's like, you know, for me, that's really important because I want to be a great mom, but I also want to be somebody that I can be respected as well, and not just say no Saturdays off, you know?
Yes. Well,
Saturdays
we teach other people how to treat us. And so we do that in business as well. If you're continually giving in to someone else's demands at the harm or the damage to your own self or to your family, whether they know it or not, whether it's intentional or not, they'll pick up on that vibe, and that's how you'll begin to be treated.
Yeah.
And what I have learned in my later years is people also pick up on the opposite. When you're direct, when you're honest, when you're fair, and when sometimes you aren't at their beck and call. Right? It's just a gentle reminder that other people have lives too. And if that customer doesn't like that, they can find another realtor. And I guarantee business will boom for you because priorities have been righted. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And sometimes they change to those priorities, but yeah. Yep. I'm thinking of one of the questions that you had on here was the where is it? The pet peeve of my industry as
Yes. Yep.
well. And I do think that sometimes the stigma that goes along with being a realtor, of like, there's some fear sometimes that I've noticed that clients don't want to tell me everything or something because they think I'm just gonna badger them, or that they're locked in with a realtor if they just tell them, certain things. And I feel like that's one thing that is frustrating to get past, because you can't help them unless they want you to. And I'm here for a purpose, and my purpose is really their purpose.
I'm actually very glad that you added that, because I am one of those people. I'm one that I have become over the years, and I'm fighting to unbecome this skeptical, untrusting, right? And when you meet a stranger, your first, obviously for your safety, especially ladies, I would not give out everything in minute one, right?
Yeah.
But assess your trust level with that realtor. And then I agree, once you've established that relationship, oh my gosh, make your own life easier and just
Definitely
share everything.
And you should find somebody that you trust, obviously, and sometimes that is hard, but it actually is to their benefit to work with one agent as a buyer, as a seller, because then you only have to tell your story once, and they're going to be your advocate, and they're going to protect your money and your house and those things. They've got you, and I take pride in that. And so it is sometimes frustrating when you feel like, I just want to get to know you, but it's one of those things that changes every single day too. It's
With every client, I'm sure, because everybody's experiences are different. A home is not just a place to lay your head or park your car. It's where you'll spend time with loved ones, creating lasting memories. And I know she believes that to the core of her being, and that comes through in everything she does for her clients. And so
thank you so much.
Absolutely. I just wanted to thank you again. And Nikki, for anyone who's interested, where can your listeners find you or your company online?
You can find me on Facebook, Nikki Strand -EXP Realty, or on my website at Nicole Strand, NICOLE, Strand.exprealty.com.
Fantastic. And Nikki, to clarify, is NIKKI.
Yes.
Not NICKY. Okay, fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you again. Well, folks, that is it for this episode of Illuminating Leadership. As always, thank you for tuning in. And Nikki, thank you again for being a beautiful guest today.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Until next time. Bye.